James Nine Numbers here, and welcome back to another episode of the Political Freedom Fighters podcast. In this episode, I have with you all here today an unaffiliated running for Swain County Board of Commissioners members. With that being said, I want to introduce to all of you Cynthia Womble. How are you, ma'am?
Hi, good morning.
Good morning. So, I guess my first question is, who are you and what do you do?
Well, that's a great question. My name's Cynthia Womble, and I am actually a retired Navy officer who was born and raised in Eastern North Carolina. I was born in Tarboro, grew up in Wilson, and then attended North Carolina State University on a Navy ROTC scholarship. And from that point, I went in the Navy and I served for 28 years in the United States Navy, retiring as a captain in the field of human resources in the Navy. And when I retired from the Navy, we settled in far western North Carolina in Swain County, and that's where we live now.
Wow, that is awesome. What was the Navy like?
Well, I thought it was pretty awesome because, for one, it paid for my college, so that was awesome. And I didn't think when I joined the Navy that I was going to stay for a whole career. I just thought I would stay at least through the first commitment, but I kept getting offered really great assignments and continuing education. The Navy paid for both of my master's degrees. I got to serve in Europe. I got to live on the West Coast of the United States, the East Coast of the United States, all sorts of things. And so for me, it was a really good experience. My husband was also in the Navy, and he retired as a reservist with 24 years. And so we're a Navy family. Unfortunately, our son is in graduate school not to go into the military, but that's okay. He's going to go and do great things too. He graduated from Swain High School here in Swain County, North Carolina, and attended High Point University. We could not talk him into being a wolf pack. He didn't go for that. And so he graduated from High Point University, but using my GI Bill from my benefits from the Navy. And now he's actually in England studying international relations. So, yeah. But after the Navy, we settled here around 2017. We bought our house and retired here. And I wanted to continue to serve. My husband and I both felt strongly that we had volunteered a lot in high school and college. We served our country in the Navy, and we wanted to continue to serve and use what we had learned, the skills, the abilities, and the knowledge we got during our military service to serve our state of North Carolina and our local community. And so he and I have both been very involved in nonprofits and in volunteer opportunities here in our community, trying to continue giving back.
All righty, that is awesome. So what were those assignments?
So some of them were pretty boring, but very important. My first assignment was with a personnel support activity out in Washington State on the submarine base in Washington State. And I always tell people, because I was in human resources a good portion of my career, that people kind of poo-poo personnel and human resources until they don't get their paycheck, or until they want training, or until they want to get promoted. And all of those things are really important in the military. And then also taking care of families. It's really critical that we say we recruit sailors into the Navy, but we retain families. And so we want to make sure we're taking care of them as well. So taking care of people, I think, is the most important thing we can do, because when sailors or soldiers are deployed, they want to know that their income is secure, that their families are safe, and that they're going to be taken care of.
All right, that is awesome. So you mentioned you had like a couple of master's degrees. What were they in?
So I'll start with my undergraduate degree at North Carolina State was in industrial engineering. And then I got a master's degree at the Naval Postgraduate School in Operations Research. That's in applied math and statistics. So I actually did a couple of tours as an analyst in the Navy, in Norfolk, and also up in DC at the Navy headquarters. I did test and evaluation analysis the first time on new weapon systems and communication systems for the Navy. And that was when I was a junior officer. And then as a more senior officer, I applied those analytical skills in the world of personnel, in retention and recruiting, and figuring out what the goals were for those, and analyzing that, and then looking at incentives to recruit and retain the best and brightest in our Navy. Then my second master's degree was at the Naval War College in Newport, Rhode Island. And that one was in national security, as a Master of Arts in National Security and Strategic Studies. So that was really cool because in that one, I learned at the strategic level about how laws and policies happen in the United States that affect national security. So defense, um, international relations, all of those kind of things, strategy and policy. So that was really eye-opening to me to understand how national security decision making is really made. And while that was focused at the national level, I think I did gain some insights that are useful at the local and state level.
Okay, that is great to hear. So, next up, let's talk a little bit about your history. You've mentioned a little bit already. Let's talk a little bit more, either personal or electoral or both.
Uh, well, I've been married for 37 years. I did meet my husband in at North Carolina State. I moved into my dorm as a freshman, and the next morning I met him. I know that's crazy, right? And we've been married ever since. And we actually honeymooned here in Swain County. We actually rode the Great Smoky Mountain Railroad and went whitewater rafting and kayaking on the Nantahala River, and all of the great things that you can do here in the outdoors in the Great Smoky Mountains, hiking, camping, all of that. And we've been coming back here ever since, even though we grew up in Eastern North Carolina, which I know you're very familiar with. That we really love the mountains better, which is why we settled here. I do have one son. He's 23 now. Like I said, he's in graduate school himself now. I said that I volunteer a lot. Since I've retired from the Navy, I have been on a number of boards here in Swain County. I'm currently serving on the Fontana Regional Library Board of Trustees, which services Swain, Macon, and Jackson counties as a regional library. And I was appointed to that board by the Swain County Commissioners. I'm on the end of my second 3-year term on that. So it'll be 6 years total that I'll have served on that. And then I'm also currently serving, appointed by the Swain County Commissioners, on the Southwestern Community College Board of Trustees, which also services Swain, Macon, and Jackson counties, same 3 counties. That's been really awesome because there's a lot of parallels between education for young adults, which is what community colleges do in North Carolina, through early college and dual enrollment with high school students, through academic programs and associate's degrees for new high school graduates, and then also for adults returning to the workforce or gaining new skills. The North Carolina community college system, honestly, is, I think, the best in the nation. And the services it offers at such low cost, and in many cases free. For instance, for the young people in high school who are dual enrolled, I know young people here in Swain County that are able to graduate from high school and they have a certificate in welding and they can go out and get a job, or they actually can earn enough credits to start college as the second semester of her sophomore year or junior in college. That saves real money, but it also helps prepare them for those academic rigors. So huge fan of the community colleges. And it does kind of parallel or dovetail with my military experience working in personnel. The vast majority of people in the military are 18 to 25 years old, and they are figuring out their life. They're trying to gain skills that they can then apply to get jobs when they get out of the military, or they're trying to take classes towards college or earn their GI Bill so that they can go back to college. So mentoring and coaching was a lot of what I did on a one-on-one basis with sailors, but also what I like to do with young people here in the community, and especially in helping them to succeed at Southwestern Community College.
That is awesome. So, I guess my next question is, why are you running for Swain County Board of Commissioners?
That is a fabulous question. And I'm surprised it wasn't your first. So, yes, so I am running because I took the first few years after I moved here. Like I said, we actually had owned property here, which I did not say earlier. We had a vacation home here, and we had been vacationing here our entire marriage, the whole 37 years we had been coming here. So we were very familiar. We had friends here, very familiar with the area and how it had changed over the years, some for the better, some for the worse. And when I moved here, I thought, oh, I'll just be a band mom while my son's in the marching band. I'll be in the band boosters and I'll be a band mom, and that'll suffice. That'll be good enough. And what I found was that itch to do more was still there. And so I started getting involved, like I said, in nonprofits. And I was on the Swain County United Gift Fund board. I worked with as a volunteer with Giving Spoon, which fed folks who were hungry during COVID. And so I did a lot of different things with my time. And what I realized was some of the problems that the nonprofits I was serving on were trying to address were systemic, long-term problems that we could meet the immediate needs. We could have people come hungry to the Giving Spoon and we could feed them that night. But I couldn't fix the problem that made them not be able to afford food so that they weren't hungry. I could help with a nonprofit that's trying to help people find housing or stable, affordable housing. But if there's no rentals available because the long-term rental market has been turned into short-term rentals, Airbnbs for tourists, then I can't help them find some place to live, because if it doesn't exist, you can't live there. And so what I saw was that our current county commissioners board was not taking action to solve any of these problems. In fact, they were kicking the can down the road, quite frankly. I don't blame them for that, because I think to a certain degree they were trying, but that at times they're so overwhelmed by the day-to-day, I've got to solve this problem today. I can't think about the future or long term. So something that was going to take 3 years to fix it was beyond the scope of what they could handle. We also have a very low tax rate in Swain County, which is really awesome to have a property tax rate so affordable. Hey, it's great for me as a retiree. I apologize, I didn't turn my ringer off. But what that means is that our county government does not have a lot of money to work with. And so some of these problems are just, even if there is a solution, it is not affordable in our county, whereas it may be in counties that in North Carolina that have a higher tax rate. So that is the main reason that I ran. Now, I want to point out, I actually ran for county commissioner in 2022, the first time, as an unaffiliated candidate. And it was pretty shocking to have an unaffiliated candidate run and do the petition process. Folks said, oh, you won't even get enough signatures. Well, I got enough signatures. I got on the ballot. Still pretty new to the community. Definitely, just like in my hometown of Wilson and where I was born in Tarboro and Edgecombe County, there is a lack of trust of newcomers and people who are not from here. I think that's true in any rural communities, whether you're in North Carolina or someplace else. And so, I got support, I got votes, but I didn't make one of the top 2 vote getters, and there were 2 seats open. And so I did not make it through that election. In 2024, I considered running again because there were 2 more seats because they're offset too. And I chose not to run because I thought the candidates who were running were addressing the issues. And so I supported candidates during that election who I thought would do a good job. Since that time, now it's another 2 years. And one of our county commissioners who was sitting, who beat me in the 2022 election, chose not to run for re-election. And I was encouraged by a lot of my friends, a lot of colleagues, a lot of folks here in the community kept getting asked, are you going to run again? Are you going to run again? And I kept saying, no, I don't think so. I think it's okay. And they were like, no, we need you to run. And I'm like, okay. So I talked to my husband and we decided we'd give it one more go to run. So I threw my hat in the ring and I went through the petition process and got my signatures that I needed to get on the ballot. And so here I am. I'm on the ballot in November. There are 5 candidates. There are 2 Republicans and 2 Democrats and me on the ballot. And then we've recently had another candidate kind of throw her hat in the ring as a write-in. She ran as a Republican for chair of the county commission in the primary, but now has affiliated. Well, she's now changed her registration to unaffiliated so that she can run as a write-in for county commissioner. So she's actually running against me now, as a write-in. My name's actually on the ballot, thankfully. So that's how I got here and why I'm running. And I do still think that I can help. Um, I don't know the answers. I don't know all the answers. Quite honestly, I don't even know all the questions yet. Um, it is very difficult to get information in Swain County. There's not a lot of transparency. Our county website is pretty obsolete and it's very difficult to find information on it. And there is a lot of information that is not located on the website. You have to go down to the county offices and put in a request to get hard copies. And that's I mean, it's not impossible to overcome, but it makes it difficult to answer some basic questions about what really is happening in the county and where the money is going and what actions are being taken by the county manager and county staff to address challenges in our community.
Yeah, I'm actually glad you mentioned that your county's website has not been updated. Why do you think that is?
Wow. So I'm trying to figure out how to answer this question without making it sound like I'm blaming people because I don't want to. Because I have a lot of friends who work for the county, and I have a lot of respect for our county manager and for the team there. I truly believe they're doing the best they can with the resources they have. I see a lack of priorities. Our county commissioners have they tend to go after the alligator closest to the boat, whatever people are complaining about that week. And there's not really a strategy or a long-term plan of how to address all the issues and challenges. And that can be maintenance needs in buildings, it can be our website, it can be our salary scale for employees, it can be affordable housing. Any of these issues, it tends to be just kind of whack-a-mole. And so you see around our community that things get built or installed, like say a new playground, say it was installed 10 years ago. Well, it hasn't really been maintained well, and it's probably at the end of its useful life, but there was never a plan put in place to budget to do that. And there was never the resources for the recreation department to maintain it properly. And so you wind up with, well, now it's going to be condemned by the state because it's not safe and we have no money to replace it. And that kind of thing. I mean, I just use that as an example, is that and I put myself in that as part of the community. I think we can do better. I think we can actually prioritize our needs, and we can ensure that we have long-term recurring preventive maintenance and repair plans for our equipment, our buildings, our playgrounds, as well as things like our website. We do not have anyone in Swain County who is employed by the county whose job is communications, which is unusual. But we are a small county with a small county staff. And so I would also say it is nobody's job to manage the website. And if it is nobody's job, then nobody's doing it.
Right, fair enough. So, what is the Swain County Board of Commissioners?
So the Swain County Board of Commissioners in North Carolina, we have 100 counties, and those 100 counties each have a Board of Commissioners. And this is under the North Carolina General Statute. Now, how they are set up does vary a little bit, and how they are elected varies a little bit. In Swain County, we have 5 seats on the county commissioners. One of those is the chair, and 4 are members, and they are each elected separately. So people actually run for office to be the chair and get elected as the chair by the people of the county. Some counties in North Carolina, in fact, the vast majority, they elect their county commissioners, and then the county commissioners vote on who the chair is going to be. So it's the people on the county commission that chooses the chair. In North Carolina, that's not the way. I mean, in Swain, it's not that way. They actually vote. So the county commissioners are responsible for the budget, So the money, how it gets spent, and providing those for hiring and supervising and setting priorities for the county manager who runs day-to-day operations of the county, and also for the policies and ordinances of the county. So any of the policies, ordinances, they're not called laws at the county level. Those regulations belong to the county commissioners to put in place or to change and modify. So that is the overall responsibility of the county commissioners. So it's everything from public safety to funding our schools. They're not the school board. There's a school board does policy and process for schools, but funding from the county commissioners is part of the budget. They don't own the law enforcement, but they fund it. The sheriff's office in North Carolina, as you know, the sheriffs are elected. So they're separate, but the funding for the sheriff's office flows through the county. So they are responsible for that. And the same thing with other county services. Like I said, recreation, uh, solid waste removal and processing, trash, basically. Um, excuse me. And basically, the health department, social services, all of those different things that fall underneath the county that are for the health, safety, security, and prosperity of the citizens of Swain County.
Alrighty, that's pretty good to hear. So I guess my next question is, what are your thoughts on the major parties?
That's a great question. So obviously I'm unaffiliated. So right there, you know that I'm not a fan of either party, or else I would have registered as one of those parties. And I know from watching your podcast that you're not a huge fan of either party of the major parties either. Um, I will honestly say loads of friends, once again, and family members who are registered in either of those parties. And what I've found 4 years ago, and what I find even today, is that the vast majority of people I talk to are somewhere in the middle. They may still be registered Republican or Democrat, or they may be registered unaffiliated. As you know from the statistics in North Carolina, about a third of North Carolinians are registered unaffiliated. And we what people are rejecting, and what I reject, is the extremes of the two parties. And I don't think those extremes on either the left or the right represent the majority of people in Swain County, in North Carolina, or in the United States. I think most of us want the same things. We want to be safe in our home. We want to be able to get a job that will pay for us and our families to live comfortably, and safely and securely. We want opportunity. We believe in the American dream, that if we work hard, we'll be able to get ahead. We want that to still be able to happen. We want good schools for our kids. We want, if we call 911, for law enforcement to come and help us, or the fire department, or the ambulance, whoever we need, we want them to come and help us. We want that. We want good roads. We want to have playgrounds. We want to have parks, you know, all of these things. We also, I think most of us believe in the Bill of Rights, and we want to have freedom of speech. We want to be able to gather. We want to be able to speak our mind. We also want to be able to have our guns. We in Swain County, we like to hunt. We like to fish. We like to be able to do sport, skeet and trap and all those fun things. I mean, it's a rural county. Hunting is a way of life, so people are very worried about that. We also want, like I said, to be able to do on our property what we want to do on our property, have our house be the way we want it to be. So yeah, so I think that's in general, like I said, I would say lean left on schools, healthcare, taking care of children, um, all of those kind of community value, people value things, and then lean right on things like safety and security, law enforcement. Obviously, I was in the military. I believe strongly in national security as well. But I believe I'm also somewhere hovering in that middle. And so I don't feel like I align with either of those two parties at the national level. And I thought it would be disingenuous of me to run as one of those parties just because it would be easier to run because I wouldn't have to do the petition process because it would be publicly looking like, appearing that I agreed with whatever the platform was at the national level or the state level of that party. And I don't agree completely with the platform of either party.
That is great to hear. So, before I go over the competition, you mentioned that you lean more of a moderate. Would you be open to being in communications with multiple moderate parties that I am in contact with?
So I've actually heard from some of them already, and I have friends who are active in some of them. There's because I'm a military veteran, I'm kind of connected in with military veterans. I'm a female military veteran, so I'm connected with some of those organizations. Some are party affiliated with Republican or Democrat, and some are not. Some are new. At the I have looked at Independent Veterans of America. I'm not sure if you're aware of that organization. They are actively raising money and supporting independent, because in some states they're not called unaffiliated, they're called independent candidates for office all the way from the local to the state level. I do have a an associate who is running as an unaffiliated independent candidate for congressman in Illinois. And if you want to look at how hard it is to get signatures on a petition in a county, just imagine having to do it in a populous state for running for state office. In North Carolina, that would be literally tens of thousands of signatures you'd have to get on the ballot. But she's a hard charger, and so she's out there trying. So yes, I would be interested in hearing from people about their parties. I have to admit, I don't have a lot of hope that there will be any parties formed in the near future that will be able to challenge the dominance of the Republican and Democratic parties. Quite frankly, the state laws in most states, and North Carolina is no exception, are specifically written to make it hard for another party to come in and gain support enough to make a difference. Um, they make it hard for independents intentionally. They make it hard for someone else because the parties in power have all the incentive in the world to make it so that no one can challenge their power. They may not think of it that way, although I think with redistricting, they are thinking of it that way, that they want to intentionally and willfully put in place policies and laws that will maintain their power.
I 100% agree with you on this. So, I guess the next question we can go over is your competition. You mentioned that there's a writing candidate earlier that I actually didn't know about, so I appreciate that. But yeah, let's go over all the candidates that you're running against.
So there are, I really don't want to give them publicity because, I mean, I don't want people to vote for them. No, I'm just kidding. I'll go ahead and talk about them. I mean, so actually, several of them are friends of mine that are running, and I am pretty excited about it. And there are 2 seats, so you can still vote for me and vote for one of them too. So I'll start with the Democrats. Erica Smith is a local attorney. Her mother is a Navy veteran, retired Navy enlisted, and Erica married a very wonderful person here in Swain County, Craig, who is born and raised here. And Erica has lived here for a number of years and has 2 children. And she's very passionate about supporting our schools and our school teachers. Right now, Swain County is, last I looked, we were one of 4 counties, but we may be down to one of 2 counties in the state of North Carolina that does not pay a local area supplement for our school teachers, which means North Carolina has one of the lowest paid school teachers in the entire country, and Swain County has the lowest paid of the lowest paid, which means it's really hard to attract new teachers here to the community and to retain the ones we have, because if they can just drive 30 minutes down the road and get paid more, why not? They've got families to raise and their own bills to pay. So it's those teachers who are here in Swain County, I have to say, they're here because they want to be here and they're passionate about this place and these people. So yeah, so Erica, she also is very concerned about uh, change in our community. And by change, I mean We have had rapid growth in tourism, and that has, I already alluded to the fact that we have a lot of short term rentals. We have a lot of long term housing that it was turned into short term rentals, um, which is really sad to see someone who's lived in a rental property for potentially decades be told they have to leave, that their lease is not being renewed, and now the owner is going to turn it into something short term because they can make more money. Hey, I'm all for capitalism. I want people to make money, but it does have an impact and a negative impact on our community, as we have lost people from our community because of that. Our demographics are also changing, and that is something Erica and I have talked about as well. When you look at the population changes reported in the censuses, and then just what we observe as community members, we are becoming an aging community. We have a lot of retirees like me moving here, although I moved here young at 50, but we have a lot of retirees moving in here after 65, and they're not joining the workforce because they're retired, and they are purchasing properties sometimes for cash because they're selling properties in other states and making money. Moving here, everything doesn't cost as much. They pay cash for a property and they move in. And now they're taking something that, like I said, potentially a young family could have lived in, and it's retirees. And when you look at our changes, the young people, when they graduate high school, a lot of them are moving away to find jobs or to go to college, and then they can't find a job here. If they find a job here, this is a problem with school teachers and sheriff's deputies in particular that I'm aware of. They get offered the job and then they can't find anywhere to live because there's nothing available in the rental market, and they can't afford to buy on the beginner salaries of a new sheriff's deputy or a new school teacher. And so they go get jobs other places, like I said, where they make more money and where they can find housing. I mean, honestly, I wouldn't live in Asheville and drive the hour and a half to Swain County just because I can get an apartment in Asheville. I mean, especially with the gas prices right now. I mean, that'd be kind of crazy to drive that far for a job that pays you less than if you just got a job in Asheville. So yeah, it's a real challenge. So Eric and I've talked a lot about those kind of things. And like I said, she's a real estate agent, so she's right on the front line of the housing and land use issues in our community. Um, the other Democrat running is Chris Reed. Chris is a very passionate young man. I say young, a lot of people are young to me. He's in his 30s, and he is an enrolled member of the Eastern Band of Cherokee Indians. Swain County and Jackson County have both share part of the land of the Qualla boundary, which is where Cherokee, North Carolina is, where the Eastern Band of Cherokee Indians is. Technically, it's not a reservation. It is a boundary because the Cherokee people own that land, not the federal government. And Chris, like I said, is an enrolled member. I do think it's important since about a quarter of the population of Swain County are Native American, that our county commissioners be representative of that. I'll say 4 years ago, there was a period of time for 4 years where the chair of our county commission was an enrolled member, and so I think that's important to have that representation. Um, Issues that he is passionate about are drug enforcement. We do have drug and alcohol challenges in our rural community. Like I said, that's not unlike most rural communities, especially in Appalachia, but also in any rural community in Eastern North Carolina. Um, we're not unique in having those challenges with fentanyl, with meth, with alcohol abuse. Um, all of those problems, and a lot of them get tied down to the lack of jobs, the lack of housing. It's all a cycle. The lack of funding for our programming, whether it's in schools, health department, social services, recreation department. So yes, so working together with the Eastern Band of Cherokee Indians to try to address some of those challenges in our community is something that Chris is passionate about. The two Republican candidates, one is, oh man, I just forgot his name. That's bad. Well, one is Lisa Barker, and she is a very wonderful lady who does a lot in the community also. And she sees that something needs to change. And she's been very vocal about that, that there needs to be some change. Um, she also wants to protect the way of life we have here in Swain County. You may have heard, well, actually, I'm confident because you're so plugged into what's happening across the state that you know that data centers and cryptocurrency mining and things like that are a huge issue across rural communities in North Carolina. And there are several counties and towns right now that have put moratoriums in place against new cryptocurrency mining or data centers because of the environmental impacts, the huge water usage, power, the noise, the fact that they don't bring any jobs really into your community. They basically just suck resources away and don't really provide any benefit, especially since our state legislature provided tax rebates for the companies that put those in place. And so we've had that in Swain County. We haven't actually had anyone trying to build one in Swain County. And quite honestly, I don't think it would be cost effective for them to do so. But that being said, nobody wants it to happen. Like I said, we're a very rural area, and the outdoors and outdoor life is not just how we live day to day in Swain County with boating and fishing. And I mean, we've got Fontana Lake for lake activities. We've got the Nantahala River, the Tuckasegee River, the Conalufty River for paddling activities and tubing at Deep Creek. We've got the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. A huge portion of Swain County is actually inside the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. And we have two entrances to the park, actually three entrances to the park in Swain County. And so hiking, backpacking, the Appalachian Trail runs through Swain County. So tourism, huge. We have tourists that come here from all over the world and all over the United States because the Great Smoky Mountains National Park is the most visited national park in the entire country. A lot of people don't believe that. They think, oh, it must be the Grand Canyon or something. I'm like, no, the Grand Canyon is way out there in the middle of Arizona in the middle of the desert. Great Smoky Mountains National Park, you can drive here in 2.5 hours from Atlanta, from Charlotte. DC's only 8 hours. Nashville's not that far. Raleigh's 5 hours. So I mean, you can get here from a big circle of metropolitan areas, plus airports for people flying in from outside the country. It's a huge mecca for backpackers and campers and hikers. And then, like I said, outdoors, fly fishing. Fly fishing is huge up here. The trout are amazing. So we want to protect that because tourism is our number one industry in Swain County. We wish it wasn't, quite honestly, because it doesn't pay well, because most of the jobs are service industry jobs. We wish we had manufacturing or some other type of job that would pay a living wage and provide benefits. Most tourism-based jobs, service industry jobs, do not come with benefits. Many are part-time or they're seasonal. The Nantahala Outdoor Center in the summer is the largest employer in Swain County. And then they lay off most of their employees in the fall through the winter and then pick them back up. Great Smoky Mountain Railroad, another example. When they close after Polar Express in the winter, people are laid off for several months until tourist season picks back up. So it is not a year-round full-time employment, and therefore they don't get benefits. So it's really the two largest employers year-round are, in fact, the school district and the county. So they're government jobs. That's not a healthy, sustainable economy for our community.
That
All right, so I just went off on that. So the fourth candidate, I had to remember what I was talking about. I got so passionate about that. So the fourth candidate is actually Mr. Jay Kirkland. Jay is a small business owner. He owns a logging company, logging and tree company, and firewood, and he is incredible. I have a lot of respect for him. He is currently the chair of our county commission, but he was appointed to that when our elected chair of our county commission was he resigned. He resigned last summer. I will say there was a bit of a cloud over it. I'm not privy to the details, but I know he resigned, and under North Carolina state law, because it was an elected position, the Republican Party of Swain County got to recommend a candidate that then the county commissioners voted on to be the new person. So from because it was a Republican who was in there, so a Republican got to replace it. Jay threw his hat in the ring. He'd never been involved in politics previously, and he was chosen. And it's been a fire hose for him to get up to speed, but he's thrown himself into it. And I really like the common sense that he brings to the job in asking really good questions, and his experience as a small business owner for his whole adult life. He's been having to manage his own budget and pay his employees and attract and retain employees and find customers and do all of that. And he brings that down to earth wisdom with him to the job. Now, that being said, he chose to run not for chair, even though he's currently the chair. He chose to run for county commissioner, partly because in North Carolina, the county commissioners, I mean, it's a volunteer part-time job. You do get paid a stipend, but it is not very much. And each county decides what that stipend is. And Swain County doesn't have a lot of money, so we don't pay a lot. What he found is that being the chair, you have a lot of responsibility and you have a lot of meetings you have to go to, not just at the county level, but with other counties around you, with other organizations, with the regional organizations like the Southwestern Commission, with all of the different parts of the community that needs to be managed and represented, because you as the chair, you and the county manager are the representatives for the county. And so there's a lot. There's also a lot of actual responsibility that takes time, because the chair of the county commission, along with the county manager, are who are actually the signature authorities for things like contracts and all. I mean, so he it's a lot of work. It's a lot of hours. It's why a lot of people who run for office tend to be retirees who have a stable income already. I'm blessed that I have my Navy retirement pay that I can count on to be there to pay my bills. Because otherwise, I honestly don't see how someone young and in business for themselves, or even with a 9 to 5 job, could run, for instance, for state senator or state representative in North Carolina, because you don't get much money and you spend a lot of time away from home in Raleigh, especially when you live someplace like here. Swain County is closer to 5 other state capitals than it is to Raleigh, because, as you know, North Carolina, Marietta, Murphy, we're a long state. And so, we're not as far as Murphy. Murphy's another, people think, well, you must be in Tennessee. And I'm like, no, Swain County, actually, you can go another 2 hours and still be in North Carolina, still go 2 hours west, still be there. But I will say that it is a challenge as a small business owner, because when you're a small business owner or you work in the service industry, when you don't work, you don't get paid. And so if I'm giving up time to serve my community and I'm not getting, paid because I'm giving up that time, that is a huge sacrifice that we're asking of people. So Jay still wants to be involved. And so he is running for county commissioner. So I can already tell what your next question is going to be, because you're sitting there thinking, she just raved about all 4 candidates she's running against. If she thinks they're so great, why is she running? Why isn't she endorsing one of those candidates?
I wasn't thinking that, but if you want to answer it, go ahead.
Well, I figure somebody's going to ask me that. And I have had people ask me that. Interestingly enough, some of those people who asked me that were the same people who encouraged me to run. I decided I would continue to run. I mean, because obviously we didn't know who was going to make it through the primaries at the time that I did the petition to get on the ballot. I can honestly say I think any of those 4 would do a good job, but I think I can do a good job too. And I still am passionate about serving. And so I would like for people to vote for me and to pick one of those 4 who I just described and vote for them, so that we get the best 2 people for Swain County.
All right, that is awesome. Let's go over your platform. You actually went over quite a lot of your platform already. So I guess give us a summary of your platform.
So I have 3 major goals, or priorities, and they're not changed from 2022. So that kind of tells you, what the status of things in our community are. Um, and I apologize. The sun, I'm out on my porch and the sun just got in my face. So I'm scooting back a little bit. Hopefully you can still hear me. So the first is our schools. Um, I mentioned our schools are woefully underfunded. That's a state problem, but it is also a local problem. Our property taxes in North Carolina, by state general statute, part of that is supposed to go to support our local public schools. And in Swain County, we're relying on state, federal funding, tribal funding because of the Eastern Band of the Cherokee Indians, as well as impact aid and grants. We are not paying a local area supplement, and that is a problem. And that was the case in 2022. It is still a problem now in 2026. So to me, our children are our future, and they deserve investment. If we're not willing to invest in our children, then what are we doing? I mean, that something is wrong here. I mean, the children of our community deserve the best that we can do, the best that we can afford. And I'm not saying we need to gold plate it or anything, but I believe we can do better. And so our schools themselves, our school facilities, our school curriculums, and our teachers all need investment, and they need it badly. So that's my number one priority. Number two is I want to see our Swain County first responders staffed, equipped, and trained to meet the needs of the people of Swain County. I say that because in 2022, we were having a big problem with retaining sheriff's deputies and detention officers because of they weren't being paid well. The housing was becoming a problem. Um, they were not getting training that they needed routinely, refresher type training. So they were meeting the minimum qualifications that the state requires to be a law enforcement officer, but our sheriff just didn't have the resources to do a lot more. And it is hard to retain people if you're going to not pay them well or not give them, periodic pay raises, not be able to promote them, and then because you can't pay them, and then not train them either, not offer them anything. And then when shortages happen, as you don't have your vacancies filled, you wind up asking them to do more and more overtime. Well, overtime costs more than hiring new people for the most part, and you're wearing people out. They're missing time with their families. I mean, it's just not a good way to be. Our previous sheriff did try to address some of those issues, and I advocated during the last 4 years with our county commissioners and publicly for pay raises. They were finally put in place in July of this year. I'm sorry, July of 2025, to help. And we got a new sheriff appointed. I'm not going to go into how our previous sheriff uh, retired and the new sheriff was appointed, but the new sheriff has done a great job of attracting some new talent into the community. And he has really pushed hard for the right training, the right continuous training, and to get the positions filled. He's still got a lot of challenges, and he's still underfunded. One of the problems with our public safety is that in the winter, when it's just the full time residents, we have 14,000 year round residents in Swain County, but our population in the summer balloons, just like out at the beach on the North Carolina coast, where all the people are out there. You get the people who have second homes or third homes that come and stay for the summer, but you also get all the tourists who come and stay for a week at a time or a weekend. And that puts a huge strain on our public safety, our firefighters, our EMS, rescue squad, and like I said, law enforcement, all because the property taxes is not enough to pay for that surge that we have in the summertime and the fall, quite honestly, because October is huge for us here in the mountains with the leaves. So we definitely need to figure that out. The other issue that is still out there from 4 years ago, and quite honestly from 10 years before that, is our fire departments, our firefighting safety. We now have, in 2022, we had 2 paid firefighters in all of the county. and they were both in the Bryson City Fire Department, which is a volunteer fire department. Bryson City is the only incorporated town in Swain County, but two paid firefighters to service the entire county, and everybody else was volunteer. We had two volunteer fire departments in addition, West Swain and Alarka. We now have, I believe, 8 paid firefighters in Swain County as of right now, but both our West Swain and Alarka fire departments do not have enough volunteers because I mentioned the aging population. The volunteers are aging out of physical capability. Quite honestly, they still have the passion and want to serve, but at a certain point it's a very physical activity to fight a fire or to respond to a hiker that's lost or to a car that went over a guardrail or any of those kind of things. So we need some younger people to volunteer, but the younger people are leaving our community. Those that are left are not necessarily in a job that enables them to be able to drop everything and respond when an accident happens or when a fire starts. I mean, because we can't plan for that. I could be in the middle of my job at the Harris Casino, or I could be guiding a raft down the Nantahala River, when a call comes. How am I going to get there? Or how am I even going to know to get there? So it's a real challenge to staff those volunteer fire departments. The equipment is aging. Once again, no recapitalization project. There's also lack of documentation of training. So there's been challenges from the state because volunteer fire departments do have to meet standards from the state also that have affected both of our fire departments. That then impacts not just our community because we want to know if, like I said, if we call 911, if my house catches on fire or my business catches on fire, somebody's going to come. But it also affects our insurance rates. So people in our community who own property are paying higher insurance rates because of the downgrade of some of our firefighting capability and capacity in Swain County. And that's not good because if you're on a fixed income or you, like I said, work a service industry job, anything that makes your expenses go up is bad. And so what's happened is people who do own their property, say they inherited it from someone or it's a family property that they're allowed to live in, they don't have insurance. They can't afford it. And sadly, the last few homes in Swain County that have burned, and I'll be honest, if your structure catches on fire in Swain County, even if it's inside the city limits of Bryson City, it is probably going to burn to the ground. Because by the time the firefighters get there, they're going to be able to stop it from spreading so that no other properties are impacted, that they're probably not going to be able to save your structure. And part of that is just a time distance problem. If you live on the top of a mountain with a beautiful view, you're probably 30 minutes from town. That's where the fire station is. It's just going to take time. It wouldn't matter if you were in Hyde County or Catawba County or, Brunswick County or wherever. If you're a long ways from the fire station, that's what's going to happen. So that's so I'd say firefighting. It's been talked about and talked about and talked about at the county, the town level, and with those volunteer fire departments. There are good people trying to come up with solutions, but the solution comes down to money, and money doesn't grow on trees, and so therefore it comes down to priorities. So figuring out what those priorities in and figuring out how to attack them systematically to solve these issues for the people of Swain County, I think are critical. And so that's why that's my number 2 priority, because there's still work to be done there for both law enforcement and other first responders. And then the third is change. I've talked about change. I talked about demographic change, talked about affordable housing, workforce housing. I've talked about tourism becoming the number 1 driver economically in our community. All of that brings both opportunity and challenges. We've got challenges like people say, well, maybe there'll be a data center, or maybe somebody wants to build a big hotel resort that would totally change the character of our rural community. But we don't have zoning in Swain County. I know, shocking, right? No zoning. You pretty much can do whatever you want to do on your property, and nobody can tell you anything otherwise. There's very few restrictions. A few of them are things like erosion control, like from the state. Like if you're you have runoff into a river, that kind of thing. You can be stopped, but otherwise, pretty much you can do whatever you want. And so, while people say they don't want change, they don't want change. They mean development, and they mean big resorts, big hotels. They mean big houses. They mean more short-term rentals that push people out and price people out from affordable housing that are workers. They say they don't want that, but there's nothing that has been done to stop it. There's nothing being done right now in Swain County to shape change to be what we want it to be. So we're being real good about saying what we don't want. We don't want data centers. Okay, well, what do you want? Is anybody working on that? Is anybody going out there trying to find somebody who will come in here and create a business that will create jobs that we do want? I'll answer that question. The answer is no, because there's nobody in Swain County whose job is economic development either. So we don't have anybody working on that. But so right now we're just putting our hands up and saying no, but nobody is trying to figure out what we do want and try to attract that into our community to improve our community. And we're not doing a good job of putting guardrails on what we don't want. We just say we don't want it, but then we don't want zoning because we don't want people telling us what to do with our land. And so therefore we have nothing. We did just pass, I say the county commissioners did pass, I think 2 weeks ago, a moratorium, a 1-year moratorium on data centers, which means they do have to figure things out, put together a committee, try to figure out what kind of ordinance or thing they want to put in place, whether it's special permitting process, whether it's zoning or whatever. If you Google Swain County land use, you'll find that our land use plan for the county, the only one in existence, is from 1995. A lot's changed in the world since 1995. So that needs to be updated as well as we figure out what we want going ahead. So that's what I think is I think we can either continue to be victims of change in Swain County, or we can choose to shape the change to be what we want it to be. And that's what I tell people is I want to help shape the change to something that we want as the citizens of Swain County, because we do want to protect the rural character of our county. We want to protect the environment and the nature and the wonderful things that we have here that allow us to fish and hunt and hike and boat and all of those things, as well as the people who come here and want to enjoy that respectfully. So those are my priorities.
All right, that is awesome to hear. So, how's the campaign doing right now?
Well, I've kind of been on a little bit of a hiatus, mostly because I'm trying to raise some money, just a few donations to help to be able to do a few events and to get things like buttons or stickers and signs for later and on in the fall when we need to put up signs. I am trying to get out and meet as many people as I can, but it is a challenge in our community because it's rural. I mentioned that we have a lot of people who do not have internet at the home because it's a very mountainous, and so the terrain doesn't doesn't have we don't have cable TV and internet and those kind of things. And those who do that is available is expensive. Satellite internet or Wi-Fi internet. I mean, that's expensive. And so in our newspaper that we have in our community, it's a weekly newspaper, was recently bought by another big company, and it's slowly been shrinking. And they did not hire anyone to cover Swain County specifically, so we have no reporter anymore in Swain County. So that being said, it makes it really hard to get the word out, because the things that you might be able to use in a larger community, in a more metropolitan area or more urban area, like TV, radio, newspaper, other types of events, or even your social media, really doesn't work very well here in Swain County. You really have to get out there and actually talk to people one-on-one. But likewise, because we're very rural, people are spread out where they live. And so you can't just walk around and knock on doors either, the way you can in a suburban neighborhood. So I have to go where the people are, where they reach, and I'm working on my plan to continue to do that. I do have friends and supporters who are helping me, and that's what I'm doing. Is I need I need to get the word out, and I want to make sure people understand where I'm coming from and what I support.
All right, that is good to hear, and I promise I will do the best to help spread the word on your campaign with some of the parties that I'm working
Thank
with.
you. Yeah, thank you very much. Well, I'm actually about out of time. I've really enjoyed this. If you have additional questions, would you be able to email those to me and I could answer them? But I do need to move to my next appointment.
Oh, okay, yeah, no problem. I'll yeah, I can definitely do that.
Okay. And I was going to say, if you want to, and we could always do a follow on at some point in the future, later in the campaign season, if you wanted to. Yeah.
Yeah, we can do that. With that being said, everyone, I guess that's gonna be it for this episode of the Political Freedom Fighters podcast. For now, if you all have enjoyed, please hit the like button down below, hit the subscribe button if you're new to the channel, and hit the notification bell on any new updates that I have for the podcast. And with that being said, I hope you all enjoy, and I'll see you all later.
Thank you. It's nice talking to you.